Over in the pages of Marvel Comics, Norman Osborn has been trying to turn from the villainous Green Goblin to the heroic Gold Goblin. However, Norman has been challenged again and again by Spidey's villains who are starting to get upset by this new status quo. In fact, Norman's former therapist turned villain, Ashley Kafka, now known as Queen Goblin, has made an unlikely alliance over with Kraven the Hunter. Together, the duo were looking to stab Norman with a spear infused with the Goblin's sins to turn Norman into his villainous self. However, our duo missed and ended up stabbing Peter Parker instead, infusing him with the sins of a goblin. My name is Arako Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and see how Peter and Norman are going to fare against this shocking new status quo change over in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue 33. Before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button on our video. Spider-Man's first hunt. The hunter is now the prey. Can Kraven survive? Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 is written over from Zeb Wells, featuring art from Patrick Gleason, colors from Marcio Menyz, letters from VC's Joe Caramagna, and we have a cover for the issue coming in over from John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menyz. Now, one of my favorite parts about this particular issue of Spider-Man and this kind of core Spider-Man run in general is how author Zeb Wells has done a fantastic job arranging some of the pieces of classic Spider-Man stories and turning them on their head. This one in particular seems to be having a lot of fun over with Kraven the Hunter, turning Spider-Man as the aggressor over in this story. I love the kind of silhouetted Spider-Man looming large over his webs, staring at Kraven in a lot of detail here. And I want to extend a quick thank you over to Adventures in Poor Taste and spend just a few moments here focusing in on Patrick Gleason's art. I really do think Patrick Gleason is able to bring out the melodramatic side of Peter Parker in some great opening scenes here within the issue. I also like this return to some of the recent status quos we've seen with Kraven really becoming upset at what he did over with Ashley in some of the previous issues. Also, the way that this book really dives into some of the psychological aspects of Norman really does a great job recounting Kraven's last hunt as well. Also, really thought that this page in particular was a great just direct homage to that sequence, captured so well over from Patrick Gleason. I typically associate Patrick Gleason with lighter art over on these Spider-Man comics, so really getting a chance to see Gleason go as dark as he possibly could with the property was really enthralling. There is such a tense reaction spot over with Spider-Man that's also a panel bleed happening a little bit later on in the issue that is just so dark and tense. I also think this issue does a fantastic job dealing with some of those darker panel borders in order to give us the most violent and horrific Spider-Man story we could possibly think of with some of these characters. Previous issues of this series inform some of the tragedy between Kraven and Peter really nicely here, as Kraven is a little bit hard to be redeemed right now due to the way that he has continually taken some shots over at Norman Osborn simply for turning into a hero in the context of Spider-Man. I also love getting the chance to catch up with Norman and to see just how scared he was to go ahead and search for Peter within the context of this storyline. It really feels like Norman was clued in as soon as Peter was stabbed over in the issue and has a really good idea of what's coming next. Really think there's some strong facial reactions across this book, not only extending to Peter Parker himself infused with the Goblin sins, but also extending to the worrisome elements over with Norman Osborn, as well as Kraven the Hunter, who we've already mentioned has so many sort of tense reaction shots. I also really appreciate how late into the storyline we get to see Patrick Gleason utilize some elements of darker negative space as opposed to just white space in order to show just how violent and deadly the scenario between Kraven and Spidey has gotten as the story progresses here. So at the end of the day here, I thought this was a really fun, over-the-top, super dark, melodramatic issue of Spider-Man. I think the one saving grace for this chapter that really helped land some of the plotting details was how the previous issues of Amazing Spider-Man have really been devoted to setting up some of these elements. And it's not only just the main Amazing Spider-Man run either, because Ashley Kafka, the Queen Goblin, was set up numerous times over in the Gold Goblin miniseries as an antagonist over for Norman. It really does feel like so many of the elements of this issue are really carefully plotted. And I also love how some of the first plot elements for the Queen Goblin coming back into the book in Amazing Spider-Man issue 31 that was largely focused on a storyline setting up the gang war. So really have to appreciate the extremely complicated tone and plotting of this series that's extended in some really fascinating ways here. Very excited to see where Peter Parker takes this goblin-infused outlook over into his daily life, and I hope he doesn't end up getting in a scenario that's so kind of harrowing that his supporting cast once again looks back at him in anger. But I want to know from you, what did you think about this chapter? Did you like this more dark realization of the Amazing Spider-Man? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for coming to check out our video, and we'll be back here in the near future to talk and see if Spider-Man can escape some of these goblin-infused sins. Thank you so much for coming to check out our video, and we'll be back here to talk future issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.